All right, good evening, everyone. It is now 6 o'clock. We'll call the Planning Commission meeting for Monday, April 29th to order. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Barnes. Commissioner Urbani.
Here.
Commissioner Chorin.
Here.
Commissioner Hawley.
Here.
Commissioner Schaefer. Alderman Stralchek.
Here.
Mayor Nurbin.
Here. First up, we have approval of the minutes from March 18th.
Move approval. Second.
Motion and a second. Are there any comments or corrections? Don't look at me, I wasn't there last month. Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are approved. First up, we have a couple of consent items, but one of them, the first one is a public hearing. So that item is St. John Properties Incorporated for NA Creative LLC. Is there a motion to go into public hearing?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of entering public hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now in public hearing. Is there anyone here tonight who wishes to speak on this item? Hearing and seeing none. Is there a motion to exit public hearing? Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We're back in regular session. These are consent items, so we can take them up together. There's that item I just wrote. There's another item. The next one is also a consent agenda item, Coldwell Banker Realty for Bernita and Henry Heil, a CSM, two-lot subdivision on 777 West Bonnewell Road. Would anyone like to take those up together or have them separated?
Take them up together, but I have just one quick statement to make.
Okay.
Not
We
going
should
off the
separate 'em then.
reservation, I promise.
Is there anyone here from the public who wishes to speak on any of those two items? If not, okay, we'll take them up separately, or no, we'll take them up separately since there's a comment on one. So which one would you like to comment on? The CSM?
It's more of a staff comment than it is an actual comment.
Which item?
It's the St. John's property one.
Okay, we'll take that one first and
Yeah.
ask your question.
Yeah, so I'm going to move approval, so that's the direction this is moving. But, again, there've been several really kind of soft uses for the industrial area, St. John's property being one of them. That's an ideal space for what's being proposed here. And I'd like to ask the question of staff, do we want to take a moment in a future date, not today, to look at what the zoning is and create some additional allowable uses to avoid the process for future applicants. This fits right in. We had fitness studios and a couple other things, in the industrial park that we've had to go through, and I don't know that anyone would come up with a future use that I'd object to.
Yeah, I agree. I think some of these conditional uses could be permitted. It's hard to really imagine what kind of conditions we'd place on them, so we can take a look at that in a future date.
Yep, that's it. I'm on the reservation, so we're good.
And I'd like to just reiterate that very same thing was going through my mind.
Along those same lines, I have staff looking at categorizing some of the less intense uses in the industrial zoned areas. I know that's in process. Might feed into this as well, but that was more from the standpoint of us not really getting the truly industrial type users we're seeking in there. It's good we can fill up the tenant spaces and get them filled, but it's not what we had really envisioned. So we have a lot of industrial, and then there's a little bit watered down commercial type use, which isn't, it's not industrial, so it ends up needing conditional uses. So I think those play hand in hand. So good comment. I think we're at least thinking about gathering the information necessary to formulate some good policy decisions on the other end. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
There was a motion. Did we get a second?
Second.
There's a second. Okay, any further comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And that item's approved. Our next item is that two-lot land division at 777 West Bonnewell Road. And are there any questions on this item? Otherwise, is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that too is approved. So if you're here for any of those two items, they're all approved and on their way. The next item is regular business. It's also a public hearing. Logic Design and Architecture Incorporated for the TJX Companies. Applicant is seeking a conditional use grant and building site plan amendment approval for a general merchandise tenant for the property located at 11110 Northport Washington Road. Sierra is the proposed tenant. Yeah, if there's representatives from that proposal, they can come up and take a seat.
Did you want to hold?
Are those
the
push to talk as well?
I believe those are, yes.
Okay, yeah. Press the button. If you see the green light, the mic's on. But maybe a quick overview from staff.
Do you want to do the public hearing first?
Oh, you're right. I should probably do that. Is there a motion to go into public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of going into public hearing, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? We're in public hearing. Is anyone here from the public here to speak on this item? Seeing and hearing none, is there a motion to go out of public hearing?
So moved.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? We're back in regular session. Now, take it away. Thank you for
Sure.
that, Jack.
This is a conditional use grant and building site plan amendment for the Pavilion Shopping Center. This is the former location of the Bed Bath & Beyond. This is Sierra, which is classified as a general merchandise store. Back in 2013, we did add a category of our text to allow for merchandise stores as a conditional use. This was based on the marshal's approval. Overall, staff is supportive of the use at the site, but there are some concerns over the architecture. So basically what we have in front of you, some of you may recall when Tile Shop was originally approved, they did a facade improvement for the entire front of the building along Port Road. That's kind of what this top one looks like. The second screen kind of looks like what's existing. So the proposal, they have 4 different proposals for us, kind of each different levels of customization. Their preferred option is this one right here, which is shown on the bottom. This incorporates a white facade with a higher sign face with some architectural detail banding to match their corporate colors. And then as you go through these, they kind of get a little bit simpler. This one here, it has less of the banding. There's just a band over the center section, but it's still white, still has a higher facade. There's a third option that shows the white in the center with gray on both sides with the higher facade, but no banding at all. And then fourth and finally, there's an option that shows the awnings back on with the gray banding, the higher Sierra, or the gray facade with no banding and the higher Sierra. So staff has kind of looked at this, and I think we actually like a hybrid approach to this. We don't mind the higher facade, but we feel like this is just a little too high. This is about 6 feet above the elevation of the roof line, and I think we're recommending about a 3-foot differential. We want to see the awnings and the gray on there, but we don't mind having a little bit of corporate branding, so we're recommending actually the branding that's shown on this elevation here, which shows the orange and the brown in this location here. So it's kind of a hybrid approach. We feel that at least they're allowed to get some corporate branding to the facility, but not ignoring what's going on in the rest of the shopping center in terms of the design that we've been working on so hard for the last couple years. So that's our recommendation for that. In terms of the use, it meets the requirements of our general merchandise district. We did add a condition in there about site compliance. I did put a picture in the packet about some issues going on. This is kind of beyond the scope, but we just wanted to make you aware of it and make the applicant aware of it. This is some of the other issues that we've had. It's hard to see on this picture, but this is a picture of the roof over by First Watch and Pure Hockey. You can see it's faded. That was one of the original sections we did the changes 2 years ago, and it's already fading, and it's kind of a mixed match of colors, and they're using, I assume they're using the same treatment on this roofing as well. So we sent out a letter to Brixmor. We're going to try to follow up with them, make sure that we can get that so it lasts more than a few years, so we don't run into this situation concurrently throughout the rest of the next 5 to 10 years. We want to make sure that they're on this, and it's more of a maintenance issue than anything, but we need to address this as we go forward. I think they'll be coming forward over the next several months for another version that includes the Sendix property, so we'll have hopefully some answers by then with regard to what they're doing here and how long we can get it to last on a consistent basis. So with that, we recommend approval according to the conditions in the report.
All right. Any comments or questions from any of the commissioners? Commissioner Chorin.
Jack, can you go back? Can you go back to the one that shows the corporate band and the one that comes closest to what you were looking for?
Sure, this is the one with the band right here. I could kind of try to zoom in a little bit.
And your recommendation is the awnings on either side, right?
The awning should be there to match the rest of the awnings, so there'd be additional awnings on each end of this, and then this would be gray, where the sign base could be white, and then this parapet would be reduced by about half in height.
Yeah, it's the sign from this option with the awnings and colors from the other
Yes.
option.
Yeah.
That's the hybrid.
So you're saying reduce the overall height to half that height?
Yeah, I think. Well, it's hard to really tell on here. And we had some conversations about the roof line. I'm a little concerned about the roof line. It looks like they're coming off that existing roof towards the parapet with like a gable on both sides of it. But it's not going to go all the way across. So you're going to see on the side profile, you're going to see a pretty large singular element there sticking up on both ends, and I think it's just too high. So I think it's nice to have that additional height there. I think it breaks up the building nicely, but I just think it's too high. Now, I just chose 3 feet. We could look at different heights of that. I mean, it looks like it's based on the scale. It's roughly about 6 feet right now above. So
So how high are the letters?
the letters of the sign, those are 4 feet. Basically, the Sierra is 4 feet, and that logo is close to 6 feet. So this is scaled out at 6, and these are at 4.
And the space below the sign, the blank beneath the lettering?
This area here,
No.
the white space,
Yep.
that's roughly about 2 to 3 feet in area. And I'll just remind everyone that the pavilion has its own master sign plan, so the size of the sign is based on the size of the facade that it goes on. So that's why the sign is a little larger than what you would probably see otherwise. But they have their own master sign plan that was approved back in the 70s or 80s that dictate how big those signs can be.
And I guess if I understand you right, you wanted to reduce the overall height by
Correct.
half? I think the space, the white space above the lettering could be cut in half, but I don't think reducing that overall height by half wouldn't put it much above the band where the tenant is.
Hard to translate that into a distance. It looks like about 2 feet to me. So maybe 4 feet instead of 6.
What I'm saying is that, if you want to reduce this overall height, you got a band you got something this high. What I'm saying is just take this and reduce it by a couple feet.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's where I came up with the 3 feet.
Okay.
Is the comment roughly to make it symmetrical vertically?
Keep this
So
sign
it's
pretty much the same size.
signs centered, there's equal amount of white on top and bottom? Okay. Just wanted to make sure I understand the nature of the comment. Commissioner Barnes.
Yeah, just a question. I've been to the one in Cheyenne. Great store, by the way. Different setting and so forth, of course. But the question that came to mind, I went back on website just to look, and I see that the name was slightly different. And perhaps it's changed, and I just wanted to make sure that there isn't going to be a change thereafter. This is from the website, but it's Sierra Trading Post, and I like what we have, but just so that we're not getting into any future.
Yep. So,
and
so you can hear me. I'm sorry.
branding.
My name is Rich Hoyne. I'm a district manager for Sierra in Wisconsin. Can you hear it?
There
we go. Sorry, I got closer. I forgot about that. So Sierra Trading Post was the original. That was purchased by TJX companies. So we have gone back and renamed all the stores Sierra, and that is going to stay. But it is the same company.
Thank you. I suspected that, but
Yeah, absolutely.
Commissioner Urbani.
I am also very excited that this store is coming. I think it'll be a great addition to this location too.
Yeah, you and your husband are going to spend a lot of money there.
It's going to be dangerous. The height of the sign doesn't bother me actually because of the tile shop's turret, for lack of a better word. The turret is very, very tall, and I think this sign would be nice balance with it, personally.
Commissioner Strelchak.
I agree with Commissioner Chorin. I like the logo size and where it's hitting at the roof line. I agree that we could bring that down a little bit on the top, but don't know that I'd want to see a reduction in the size of the logo. Where other people are welcoming you to the community, I'm welcoming you hesitantly because you're going to take a lot of my check. I've shopped at your store out in Delafield as well as your Brookfield store, and and I'm an active customer, and we always manage to find a lot of things that are just really great in that store. So thank you for your interest in Mequon as a community. I think you're going to be a real valuable asset here. My sarcasm aside, this is a win for us and a win for them with a great location with an affluent community that'll spend freely in that store. So I agree with the branding. I'm open to awnings on either side. I just don't want to see the building itself change. I want them all to be the same, but be able to identify. So this ties in well with what I'm looking for. So Jack, one question is, you said awnings on either side, but you didn't say specifically what that call out color is. Is that call out color to match
black
the
to
logo?
match. I have the picture. This is the existing tile shop picture.
Yep.
So it's got that black awning, so they would have to match that same color awning as the tile shop. And that's throughout the rest of the shopping center as well. It's not unique to tile shop.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Do they offer direct deposit?
We'll
It's easy.
let you handle business operations later. We'll worry about the building tonight. I think on packet page, oh, what page is it on? There is a page where you can get a 34.
34 has got the one we identified that we liked.
Yeah, it's got, if you ignore the sign in the middle and look at the awnings on the side, you can get a sense for what that would look like.
That's 30.
Within a page or so of that.
Yep.
No further comments or questions, I guess. Is there a
Move
motion?
approval.
Or do we want to, there's a little bit of disagreement on the height of the sign here. Do we want to, maybe I'll just ask for a straw poll on that, the staff recommendation, or Commissioner Abani kind of liked it the way it was. Is, in general, do people like it shorter or as shown? And shorter, show of hands, as shorter. So if you like it shorter, I got
Shorter but flexible.
shorter but flexible, so maybe not 3, but something less than 6.
Can I make some comments towards that?
Yeah, sure.
My name is Tim Yokes with Logic Design and Architecture. So I've been working with the group here on the design, working with the landlord also, and understanding some of the previous approvals that have taken place. With the height, we're looking at some different ridge lines here, right? We have the tile shop has that tower element that goes above the ridge line, which is lower. We're looking at about 24 feet. Is like the main cornice line of, I would say, where the top of where the bottom portion is. We're looking at a 28-foot height above grade. Staff is asking for about a 3-foot, so we're at slightly at like 23 feet. So we're about a 5-foot difference, but we have various ridge lines there. So what we would ask for is the middle ridge line of the roofs there, so that the highest ridge, the center portion is at 28 feet. It steps down to 25 feet, and then steps down again to 20 feet approximately. So we were looking to get into that middle range, which is at 28 feet. Now the proportion of the sign area, that can always be adjusted, right? That sign, it can be moved up, proportion in the center. There's always, different things that we can do with that. So that's what we originally had proposed, and, are looking to get some of that height back. And that would actually be lower than the ridge of the tile shop, which is probably about as tall as the ridge line on the other side. It's hard to tell with those, with those roofs being back so far.
Do you have a question?
Yes.
Alderman Strelchak, Commissioner Strelchak, sorry.
Yeah, either way, it doesn't matter.
Wrong
So I've
meeting.
got a quantitative question. So we're looking at the tile shop and we're comparing it, coming up with heights that we want to see here, and I don't want to just kind of wing it, right? So architecturally, the height of that sign should line up with something on the tile shop signage. It should either line up with the white facade height from a fascia standpoint, or the top of the gray portion where the signage is at the tile shop, to give the building some uniformity so we're not coming up with some arbitrary height in between. And I'll lean on staff and Commissioner Chorin to maybe, and the rest of the council to chime in on, really where we think that should be, but it should line up with something. Agreed?
To some extent, yes. I think the issue with the tower that you call it at the tile shop, I have a side view of it here to show it. To me, there's a difference there because there's a return on there, so it's got a finish to it, and it's built into the actual structure, where this parapet will be kind of a vertical wall in a sense. So I don't really want to compare or try to compare it to this feature. It's a separate and distinct item. So I think, if you're looking at the sign facade of the tile shop, it's right on this band. So that would actually line up pretty much with the band that's existing that's out there now. So if you were looking for strict compliance with that band, then I would say that we wouldn't even entertain that higher little parapet. But I think having a little bit of parapet there does break up this wall a little bit. There's a long, this is a long section of roof line here that's kind of not broken up very well. So I think having a little bit there is fine. It just, I don't think going up as high as they're showing really would look aesthetically
I think
pleasing.
the confusion's
Can you
being
roll this down a little
yeah.
bit to the point?
confusion's being generated because some of the renderings are computer generated and the sign's in a different spot than it really is on the real
Yeah,
building.
the sign is this is the rendering. The sign is actually up in the other picture. Yeah, it's on the wall. It's down here.
So there,
This location.
we are going back onto the roof though with a parapet. So if you could, Jack, if you could scroll down to the, and then over to the side, to the left on that plan. So there you can see that side elevation there. So it's kind of a hybrid section / elevation. So we will actually be back onto the roof and have return finishes on there. So we're not just going vertical and just being a sign panel. So it is very similar actually to the tile shop. We're just not as high and going to the most vertical ridge. Yes, correct. It's not just a billboard being
So
plastered.
there is a
We're-
return on
yes,
the ends.
it
Okay,
returns on both sides.
well, that's a little more visually pleasing.
So it does pick up some of the similar elements to what's happening, adjacent to the tower on the tile shop. We're just not as tall going up as high because of, again, that higher ridge point there.
Jack, can you go back to the picture of the tile shop tower?
The actual picture?
Yeah. So,
Look at you guys get a pointer.
is it lining up
Good thing he's
here or here? Or where?
Is
Top of that sign,
the top of the sign?
top of their sign.
I'll have to go back and forth then because it's
Now there is no image that has them both on it.
yeah. The only image we have is you'd have to kind of use this one, but imagine that the sign is here, not here. But this kind of shows. This is basically somewhat similar to what was built without the sign being here. It's over in this location here. So this is where the original sign was going to be. So it's up higher. So it's probably going to be pretty close to the elevation of the bottom of that sign, I would say. This one here?
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty close to that.
Again, you can't tell.
I guess is this as much of an issue now because we know that it's actually returned to the roof line?
Well, again, we had some conversations back and forth. I wasn't exactly sure how that return was going to work, if it was going to be a complete box or not, and then what's the cap of that going to be. So, I mean, if you want, we could try to work out these details at a staff level with the architect involved and just give us some leeway with this if possible. It might be
Yeah,
easier
I think
to
that's
try to
I think that's the
design
way
on
to
the
go
fly.
here. We're
We can do that.
we're kind of making it up on the fly, and I guess I'm more comfortable with the height as long as there's a return, and there might be a couple of elements to work out, and maybe you could just bump the sign up so it's centered so Marty's happy.
Yeah, we might have
and-
to see some side elevation profiles. So,
Okay, so maybe we're ready for a motion with a small amendment. Or another comment, Commissioner
No,
Schaefer.
I'm ready to.
Okay.
I think it's very hard to do this, and this is not a knock on anyone. It's maybe just because I'm having a hard time. It's hard to piece all of these together and visualize what it's actually going to be like. So I would like to move approval with an amendment that staff and Commissioner Chorin will work together with the applicant to come up with an agreed upon approach for that front sign. Did I capture it all? 'Kay.
Second.
If you can get a second, that's okay, yeah.
Second.
Yeah, well, can you
Design.
specify sign or the
it's
facade?
It's
The
facade
entire
itself.
facade inclusive of your logo in the sign.
I second it.
Okay, there's a second. Any further amendments to that motion, or people want to call the roll? Another comment, Commissioner Strelchek.
We're agreeing on sign option that's on packet page 34.
Oh, well, the sign will generally look like that with the awnings and colors for the building. It's per staff recommendation, just with,
Right, so
with,
everything else remains as was submitted, so the
Yes.
gray on
Correct.
the sides with the awnings and then the accent material above or below the sign face only. 'Cause that was so this was basically this one here with the gray on each side and the awnings, and then we're looking further at this height of that facade.
okay. Are there any additional comments or input? Otherwise, if not, please call the roll.
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Aye.
Commissioner Barnes,
Aye.
Commissioner Urbani,
Aye.
Commissioner Chorin,
Aye.
Alderman Stralchek,
Aye.
Mayor, I almost said
You
word.
almost did it.
Nurbin.
Caught yourself.
Sorry.
It's all
Mayor
right. It's been
Nurbin.
2 years, geez.
Vote
aye.
passes.
Congratulations. I'm excited for you to be in Mequon, and let us know when you open up. So if there's a ribbon cutting, and we'll spend some money. You got at least half of us already. Yeah. Thank you. Next up, under regular business, we have Hanes Hardware. The applicant is seeking building and site plan amendment approval to allow for outdoor display and storage for the property located at 11300 North Port Washington Road.
Yes, I think they're here as well, if you want to invite them up.
Yeah, if anyone here for ACE, please come up.
So as you may have seen, they are open for business at the old Pick and Save site. This is our second in a row of long vacant sites that we're finally getting addressed, so we're excited. They've converted this now to a multi-tenant building. ACE will be taking up 32,000 square feet of the building, and there's an additional tenant to the south that hasn't been determined as of yet. They are permitted use under the code, but they are here for outdoor storage. Basically, I have a map of the ortho of the area to show where the outdoor storage is being proposed. Now, this is a temporary solution. They want to get in there just for this year, but they're basically cordoning off this area back in here, and they're going to have their outdoor goods, some display areas, things like that. They'll have access through the door, through the building, through a new sliding door, and then access to the outside of the building. Staff is supportive of that request. This used to be a grocery store. Obviously, they have a lot more parking than what ACE is going to need there, so we're not concerned about the loss of those parking stalls. It's really kind of hard to tell on here, but I'll zoom in a little bit. This is an unusual circumstance where there's a property line running right through here. So these stalls in this location here actually are owned by the same owner that owns the optical store and the bank. So the only thing we're asking for that is if he could work with that property owner and have them not allow parking in this area here. There's a little bit of concern of having a a plastic fence separating this area with people parking in these first 3 bays of stalls here. So that'd be our only request with regarding outdoor storage. Now, they're telling us that they'll be looking at getting a fall approval for a permanent facility here for outdoor storage. We gave them until April of next year to come up with something, or it'd have to be reverted back to a parking lot. So we're not concerned about that happening at this time. Obviously, the building's been sitting quite vacant for quite a long period of time, so there's some deferred maintenance on that building. So we added some conditions that the owner of the property will have to deal with, probably more than the tenant, but we want to add them as conditions to this approval. There's some missing roof shingles. We put a June 1st date for that. There's a lot of dead and missing landscaping from the approved landscaping plan. We gave them until July 1st for that. And then there's a lot of existing light poles that are damaged and not functioning, so we gave them until August 1st to replace those. If they want to deviate significantly from that plan, we'd have to bring them back to commission for approval at a later date. But I think from what I've heard, that they're really willing to fix what's out there and get it back up to snuff that it was before. So other than that, we are supportive of this plan and we recommend approval.
Excellent. And I'm excited you could find the space you needed right here in Mequon and occupy specifically that building, which we wanted to get occupied for a long, long time. So yeah, very happy. And I think Alderman Strelchuk was your first customer.
Yes, I was.
I don't know if he camped out in the parking lot, but
I dropped my son off at school and zipped right over there, like just after 7. Bought a Yeti cup. I walked in there. You're like, you're our first customer. I'm like, oh my God, I gotta buy something. So I went and bought a Yeti cup, and I'm excited. It was King Crab Orange. So welcome and thank you.
fantastic. Any comments on the actual proposal? Commissioner Barnes was first there. Go ahead.
2 detailed questions, which I think you've stated on, but looking at the plans here, first of all, is all for the temporary one that's proposed here in front of us, is all the pedestrian flow through the building?
They'll have
It appears that way from the exhibits, and not.
2 options. I think they'll have a gate coming in off of this way here, and this spot I can't really zoom. I could probably zoom in a little bit better for you, but probably through this area here, and then there's actually a new sliding glass door being constructed that'll let you go from the interior of the building to the
Right.
exterior.
So people will be able to walk from the parking lot directly in and out of
Yes,
the
that's what I was
landscape
correct.
area with cashier and what have you. Okay, it didn't appear that way in the exhibits, but,
Yeah, that's correct.
okay. And second thing is there any condition that we need for the interim condition for outside area or lighting? Or is the lighting in the parking area?
For
rec-
for the outdoor display area?
Just recognizing people are going to be walking in and out through that area. Is there enough lighting?
There's existing lighting out there. I'm assuming it's lighting a parking lot, so it should be good enough for that. If they need additional lighting, they could come back and ask for approval at a staff level. But seeing as how it's spring and it's going to be warmer out and the late day's going to get longer, I think they'll probably be covered in for the rest of the summer just with daylight. I mean, their hours of operation don't push them past that anyway. So, but if there's a need for additional lighting, we can work with them on that as well.
Only I've seen that sometimes those become question marks later or issues,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm sensitive on.
Okay. Commissioner Strelchak.
Yeah, my only question was the propane dispensing station. I mean, you absolutely need that. I'm a customer of that at the old location, so I'm glad to see you're bringing it over here. It says temporary in here, but that's got to be a permanent asset to your location, right?
Yeah, it'll be a permanent asset to location. The location we're putting it right now will be a temporary spot. When we come back with a permanent solution, it will be in a different location, but we would have had to trench through the parking lot or that to put it in another spot. So where we have it proposed kind of that, it'd be the southeast spot there. We're able to run the electrical in the grass, trench it through the grass right now for a temporary hookup there. And then we come back with a permanent solution. We'll have a new tank and cabinet and a different location within that space for it.
Thank you. Look forward to it.
Commissioner Jorn.
Jack, did you say there was something, I believe, in there about the color of the fencing?
Yeah, we just wanted to match the building. I think they were proposing originally white. We just looked for a beige or like a taupe or something that color, just a little bit, more consistent with the colors of the building. not too concerned about it. It's only gonna be up for a year. We don't wanna spend a lot of money on, iron or anything like that, so.
And I have to compliment them. That store is amazing. Now, in comparison to where you came from, but it really, really looks good.
Thank you.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Sorry, just one thing regarding the bar or the parking spaces that are in the other property. Does that need to be its own condition, or do we just assume that they're going to work that out?
I'm hoping that I'll be okay with it. I can't see anybody from
It
that.
should not be
should
an
be not
issue.
parking
There's
over
plenty
there.
of parking.
Yeah,
I
and
just
if they're worried about those extra spaces, they can always shift spaces to these, like swap them or something like that. I'm assuming unless they're just gonna play hardball, I think they'd be pretty well cooperative with this idea. So
Okay.
Yeah, and on that, so we have common agreements on maintenance and different things within the area. So I think we're going to work with them on a kind of a permanent solution
Yeah.
with the garden center, whether we incorporate those first couple spots into our
Yes.
our permanent garden center solution and have a rental agreement or lease agreement or something within that sliver of
Okay.
land there.
it makes sense to be.
Because
Might not
it wouldn't make sense to leave 3 spops there.
No,
and
no one will park
run
there for
across.
them anyway. It will all be your people.
they might even know they own those spots. For
Yeah,
all
we
we
should-
know.
It is a little odd where the line
Right.
falls, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure you've gotten a ton of good feedback, but people are. It's pretty awesome. So, thank you.
Okay, are there any further comments, or is there perhaps a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Last chance on any additional comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that's approved. Welcome to staying in Mequon. Not coming
you,
to
guys.
Mequon, but we're happy to have you. Congrats. Next, we have 3 very similar items, but they're all separate items because they're in separate locations. So the first of them being RD Cycle LLC for the BP gas station. The applicant is seeking a building and site plan amendment to allow for an accessory structure, a textile recycling container, for the property located at 11147 North Port Washington Road.
So yeah, this was brought to our attention by Code Enforcement Officer Scott Pinzer. He noticed he's out at these 3 locations and issued order to correct for the applicant to come and get planning commission approval because it was not approved before being installed at these 3 locations. This one on the screen right now is the one by BP. Is there? Just scroll down. There might be a better picture. Show it from the or not. No, just go up to that one. That was it. So yeah, these are not incidental to the operation of a gas station, and are kind of an accessory use that hasn't been approved at all. The one at BP is only a few feet away from Mequon Road, so it's not conforming to setback. And it's adding to it's a non-essential structure that's on the site. So staff recommends denial for this.
Okay, any questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Barnes?
Simple question I have, in each one of these, it says an additional structure.
Yeah, for some of these, for the BP, they're non-conforming structures, so they're closer to, like the side setback is only 10 feet from the lot line, when for a B2 district it should be at least 20. So this is just adding another non-conforming structure to the site for each of these.
So it's adding one rather than relocating.
Well, without these receptacles, it would just be that principal building that would be non-conforming, but this would be adding another structure that's non-conforming on the site.
So the building itself is a non-conforming setback just because of space constraints on site. Before I get too much farther, I should have read this off earlier. We do have one person from the public who wishes to speak. Mikkel Flanner opposes and wishes to speak from 1550 West Mequon Road.
All right, so I think this is dirty to begin with. but I'll let you know that right away. Artie Cycle even says on their website, and from what I understand, they have not received permission to do this, is that they supply rags to wash your car, and I'm quoting this, and supply thrift stores, which means that they're accepting donations, which are completely contrary to what was written in regards to my resale code. Now, from what I understand too, this is an alleged thing, is that they also sell and send merchandise overseas. This hurts our local economy because it takes money out of it. They start and move everything to the New Berlin area, that's not Mequon, and they're competing basically directly with my business. I think they're offensive visually. I think it looks like there are dumpsters out there. And small local businesses always, if you do the research, are putting money back into the community. We pay cash for clothing. That's cash literally going directly to people who live in Mequon. At any rate, from what I understand too, I could nitpick this, but from section 58229B6 Rural Industrial Zoning District, they are also supposed to have, should these be approved, them located in a specific area and screened off. Now, I'm going to read our limitations that we have imposed upon us. Obviously, they're reselling the clothing. They admit to it on the face of their website. And it is statute section 58-8, resale clothing and clothing accessories. A retail store which sells used clothing and accessories, including but not limited to shoes, handbags, and jewelry. All items for sale shall be purchased, exchanged, or on consignment. No donation should be accepted on site, and no donated items shall be offered for sale. And then there's no furniture, yada yada. All right. I also have to say that if this is the case that they have not gotten permits, I would also like to know why they have not gotten sued on 86 counts like we did for not allegedly getting permission on our signs. And lastly, I have to say, I'm very glad Sierra is coming. I appreciate the fact that you guys approved them. That was a wonderful decision. And I'm gonna support them as much as it sounds like you guys are. You guys really complimented them. It would be really nice to see all of you at my store too.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this item before we move back to the commission? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to questions from the commissioners. Commissioner Shorn was up next.
Jack, you know, at these locations, some of them have a cage for propane tanks, ice chests. I mean, do those items have to be approved also?
In theory, all the outdoor storage at all these facilities should have gone through the commission when they were approved, just like we just did with ACE in terms of their outdoor storage. When we've approved, you know, gas stations in the past, we typically ask for an outdoor storage plan. Some of these older ones, you know, things kind of happen over time where it evolves and they add a few things here and there. So whether they're completely compliant, I'm not 100% sure, but every development that we've done, at least since I've been here, that it would have the ability to do this would have to disclose that at their time of their approval, and then they would show us on a plan where they were. So like Quick Trip, for example, had some approvals. You know, again, is there people taking advantage of that? My guess is probably yeah, and we don't have necessarily the staff to go out and look for that all the time, but yes, all these should have been documented as part of their plan when they were approved originally.
Yeah, because I think the gas station on Port in Mequon has that ice chest, ice container out in front of it.
Yeah.
Question? Commissioner Strelchak?
No, and you know, the difference is that those are items directly related to the business, and they're typically, you know, up against the building, and these are closer to the road. It doesn't have anything technically to do with the business model of the business that's there. It's just a collection site. So, you know, I'll mirror our public comment, and you know, I don't know that this is, you know, the right fit for what we're looking to do, and especially the location in proximity to the road just doesn't fit for me. So I'm a motion to deny is going to be what I'm going to move to do here.
Any other questions from any of the commissioners? If not, applicants more than welcome to say something, add something to the conversation.
So I don't know if she's still here or not. I'm a small business owner just like you. I'm
Oh,
no
yeah.
different than anything, so if you wanna discuss some of the stuff.
Can you talk into the microphone?
got-
And you're addressing the council, not the
yeah, I
audience,
Just telling
please.
her, I'm a small business owner just like she is. I'm no different than her, and our stories are probably similar with all this. My issue with
Sorry, this isn't the, it's not a conversation, sorry.
my issue with it all is I presented you guys with the Supreme Court cases that say you cannot just deny me doing business with it. You have to give me some sort of guidelines to follow, and I can jump through all the hoops that you present me. But you can't just say you don't want them here because they don't belong or whatever. The textile recycling industry has a bad name, unfortunately. And I get you guys' viewpoints on stuff with it. But I'm trying to change that one thing at a time with my small business, and we maintain them, we service them regularly. I was just trying to see if there was something other than no, they don't belong here for you guys' answer.
I'm not so sure that's the issue. It's the issue of their structures that were not approved for the site plans, and they happen to be in locations that would be non-conforming even if they were approved. So those are the reasons. It's not necessarily we don't like the use. It's the fact that there's structures that are in places there shouldn't be structures, and also the colors are not in conformance generally with the rest of the sites, so they stick out. We have codes and regulations for all of these things, and they just popped up without being applied for. So now we're forced to deal with it on the back end.
And I also think it's an issue of the relationship. This is a gas station. They're all gas stations, and propane and ice, those are typically things you'd see as accessory sales at a gas station. This is not. And I think we've made the comment that if they wanted to put this inside the building, I don't think we would be able to have an issue with it. So there's the issue. If I don't know about this court case, I don't know what the legitimacy of it is, but if they're looking for a response, they can always put it inside the building.
I think, yeah, while these might be the least objectionable things you could recycle on site, what's to stop someone from putting out a big bin and you fill with aluminum cans and you drop your recycling off there? Then it really starts to, the site location and the conditions there really start to slide.
Don't you guys have that though with your dumpsters and your cardboard recycling containers?
Now, we have dumpsters. They're always screened from public view towards the back of the building. We force people to build very elaborate enclosures around them. And that's often a complaint we get, but we do it to everyone almost across the board without fail. Usually screened from public view, nice brick or wood structures with doors that can be closed so that they're not out in public view. It's very different than what we're talking about here. Any additional comments or questions from the commission?
So I move to deny.
I have a motion.
Second.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Sorry, I didn't raise my hand quickly enough. I'm very grateful for this type of business. I am often looking for places to do textile recycling for things that are very different than anything I would ever donate or look for at 5th and Main, so I do not put them in the same category. I'm talking about socks that have holes in them because I cannot darn, nor do I choose to do that. So that's the kind of thing that I would put in there, and perhaps you get, I'm sure you get the gamut, probably garbage and really fun things as well that people toss in as they go by. I like the idea. Are there no alternative? I guess my question to you is this the most common? I looked it up. Want to host a RD cycle bin. Did you approach these gas stations? Did they approach you? Is a gas station the most common? Are there other locations that might be more?
My issue with the whole thing is that where can I put it to put it in the city of Mequon then? Where would be a good spot for me?
Oh, I've got a fantastic idea.
Okay.
So later this summer, we're sending out an RFP to redo our brush site. And one of the things we're considering adding is an e-waste recycling spot. That's one of the things our city engineer's looking at. And the brush site's going to be open for many more hours than it is now and more accessible with key card access. But that would be a good location for it because people are expecting to get rid of yard waste, electronic waste, and
Do all their
textile waste.
recycling.
It could be a central location for something like that. It's not at a gas station though; it's out in the country off of Bonnywell Road. But that might be one good location for it. I'm not saying that is the only location, but I'm just since we're having that conversation as part of this approval, that is one I could see being accepted because it'll be screened from public view and behind a gate, and then people have to. Unfortunately, we'll have to control access, so people have to get a permit to go there. But
They're
people
technically supposed to get one.
the people, well, they have to get a permit. Yeah, you can't get in there without one now. But there just won't be an attendant there. Someday there'll be a key fob
Yeah.
access thing. So, but the people that pay for that are the ones that are recycling anyway, and not just tossing stuff in landfills or burning it. So.
Because that's unfortunately a huge issue that a lot of people don't know is that 95% of all clothes that end up in a landfill can get reused and repurposed and worn again, and our landfills are filling up very quickly. And to her point, the average person throws out almost 90 pounds of clothing a year. If you times that by the whole entire city of Mequon, that's a ton of clothes that are potentially going into the landfills and costing taxpayers money.
I'm kind of on board with the mission. I'm just
I'm
maybe
definitely
not on board with the location.
I don't know if that's a pet.
Yeah.
Now I have more ideas, so maybe I'll just reach out to you directly. But I don't know if you work with like a family sharing or Goodwill or places that I know have other textile.
We work with the smaller ones.
Family sharing to me is small. It's
We would
Ozaki
love
County
to work
only.
with other local nonprofits in Mequon.
Yeah.
We're kind of just getting our feet wet a little bit and
Yeah.
try to be more involved with other communities. We help out some other smaller nonprofits with stuff. Donated a bunch of winter boots this past winter to help needy families that needed boots, and we try doing more good than harm.
Yeah, I appreciate the mission very much. I don't know if this gives you anything to go. I will follow suit and deny based on the guidelines that are in front of us, but I don't disagree that this is a valuable use, and I think there are other places that it could go that would be in compliance.
We have a motion. Was there a second? Okay, sorry. Any further discussion? If not,
I guess I would just.
Go ahead.
I would want to elaborate on the motion just in case it does go through the appeal process. I would dictate reasons for the request.
well, I think I stated several. What did I? You want it as part of the motion?
Yes, I think it should be made as part of
Okay.
the motion.
Okay, who made the motion?
I did.
Okay, want to take a crack at it?
So the motion to deny was based on the fact that it was in a location that is non-compliant with the site or the business use.
That's fine.
And that's, if you need any more, I'm happy to add to that.
No, I think as long as it doesn't comply with setbacks and it's not consistent with the principal use on the site, that's good.
No,
or-
nor
or
nor
it
does
could
it
be-
match the color scheme of the property. You know, there's a few reasons to say no. I don't disagree with you with your mission. You know, I'll mirror Commissioner Schaefer's, you know, sentiment that, you know, I think what you're trying to do is great. Just based on these compliance issues within the code, we say yes to this. It opens up to anybody else that wants to put any other box to do anything else on that street in the location in a non-compliant space. Can't support that as somebody that's legislating within a community. So I apologize to you for that. You know, again, if you need help trying to find locations, I've been in the community since I was 5. You know, happy to get to know you and see if we can recommend some places where you can go.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. With that, I think we're ready to call the roll.
Commissioner Hawley?
It was a motion to deny, so you
Motion
say
to
yes.
deny with
Yeah.
aye, the reasons. Okay. Commissioner Schaefer? Commissioner Chorin?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnes?
Aye.
Commissioner Urbani?
Aye.
Alderman Strelchak?
Aye.
Mayor Nurbin?
Aye, but please give us your info so we can talk about the brush site. Thank you. We have 2 more items that are exactly the same.
Yeah,
We'll read them in, but we can maybe skip all the formality of questions. I think we got them all out on the table. The next item is also RD Cycle LLC for the Clark Station at 10355 North Port Washington Road. Is there also a motion?
Motion to deny based on the same conditions or reasons.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of denying, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And that item is denied. And then RD Cycle LLC for mobile at 11210 Northport Washington Road. Is there also a motion?
Motion to deny based on the same reasons.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of denial, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that item is denied as well. Look forward to working with you to try and find a suitable spot, though. Truly.
And then, so there's nothing I can really do with these, it's denied, and that's basically about
They'll have to be removed within a reasonable time frame. Well, that's impossible. They're quite large. So we'll work on whatever that reasonable time frame is at a staff level.
Yeah, we'll follow up with the.
Yeah,
follow-up
not
letter. We'll take
won't be tomorrow, but
right.
something like a month or something. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. The next item is H.J. Martin and Son. The applicant is seeking a minor request approval to allow for vinyl window coverings for the property located at 10948 North Port Washington Road, otherwise known as Marshall's.
So yeah, this is a minor request to install blue vinyl across. If you look at the screen, that yellow section back there, that's the backside of their cashier stands. So just to add more privacy for them, where they can put personal items and things of that nature. That being said, there's a pretty big precedent of not blocking windows or blocking them either with vinyl signs or anything on the inside either. And even with allowable vinyl, it's only a maximum of 2 square feet, and this would obviously violate that by a pretty large degree. So that being said, staff recommends denial.
Thank you. Okay. Any questions from the commission? Commissioner Chorin.
So we're looking at the back side of the cashier station?
Right, yeah.
So is the choice, I mean, are we then requesting them to remove that?
I mean, they don't have to. This is their kind of personal minor request to just have vinyl to have some sort of privacy between people walking in and the cashiers manning those stations. They don't have to move them, but
So-
that might be a potential solution.
So is the choice viewing the back of the cashier station or concealing them with the vinyl?
It's been this way since they opened, so it's
Illustrates
there.
how
It's just
often I go
yeah.
there, okay?
Commissioner Strelchak.
Just a little feedback. I'd move to deny based on the fact that it's blue. The blue doesn't complement the building. We're going for a real nice high-end look. I know blue ties in with the Marshalls logo and branding. I worked in sign vinyl and graphics for years. I think a frosted vinyl with transparent vinyl will give you the privacy that you're looking for and be a more high-end look. Quite frankly, I've got a roll of it in my basement, which you could just have, and I can, show you how to put it on, or I can, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to offer to do it for a fee, but you can have it. And I can recommend some sign places in town that that would do that. The issue is the approval tonight with the square footage, so I would like to vet that so it doesn't have to come up next month and be like, oh, they put frosted vinyl in because Alderman Strelchik said it was a great idea. The frosted vinyl would do 2 things. It would give you your privacy. It would provide a certain level of opacity, although not 100% opaque. It wouldn't show the back, but it still also takes on the color of the building, and is in my opinion a higher end and a little richer look for the type of building that they just invested in a major refresh for. So if you want to hit that mark, I'd be happy to talk about it tonight, talk with staff. applicant feedback would be helpful, or we can just move to deny. You can come back at another month and ask for something different.
If there's anyone here from this item, yeah, please step up to the table.
Stan Mineta with TJX. Surprised my contractor's not here to talk about this, but I think we'd be open to a different color. We didn't say anything about it with the Sierra because we didn't think it'd get any further, but if you're open to a different color for the Marshalls, and the point being to hide the back of the checkouts. Sometimes you get stuff that just falls in behind it, and you know, a clean vinyl is better look than just disheveled and in a mess, or the back of fixtures.
Commissioner Torn. Oh wait, Barnes. I thought all three of you had your hands up. Okay, Barnes, you're up.
Not to repeat, but I'm kind of thinking the same thing, a smoked glass right in the area, and I guess I was confirmed by that when I came in and went to the men's room, and the lower window is smoked glass and the upper is clear glass. So I recognize for security in your
so
case,
maybe just the
it's a similar-
lower sections of the glass.
lower sections.
Yeah.
The lower sections of the
Okay.
glass. Exactly.
Commissioner Urbani.
That relates to my question. It says 18 windows you would put vinyl on. Exactly which 18 windows are you looking at?
Yeah, I don't have that plan with me, but it would essentially be the full width of the checkout area, and it would be up to just a certain height, up to the cabinet height.
So the
Not-
bottom row possibly?
Yes.
So we would see one row of potentially frosted or whatever colors agreed on, and then still the 2 columns of yellow,
Correct.
basically. Okay.
Now, Commissioner Torn.
If memory serves me right, didn't this surface over at the town center and it was denied?
This surface is all over the place. I think, and I guess we'd have to go back and look. I'm not sure exactly what was approved with Marshalls. This was back in 2013, so I don't know if this is part of their approved plan. Just for example, both Ace and Sierra, I worked with them to let them know that they could not block those windows with anything, and they would have to remain open. And I've basically heard the same response from Ace, who didn't propose anything, but they were asking whether they could block some of the windows because it wasn't blocking merchandise, but there was the backs of cashiers, and they didn't want to see people seeing the money, I guess, through the window. And then Sierra, at one point, Sierra was requesting that they convert some of those windows into brick to create more wall space inside, and we didn't support that either. I think what we do allow, and I don't know if it's going to work in this situation or not, and I explained this to Ace and to Sierra, is that we would allow like a merchandise display area where you could do something decorative, and what you also see it in town center in some locations. The town center is a little different because of the building structure. The first step, they have to put in awnings to see if that works, and then there's a process involved. But here we've allowed, and I think Fifth and Main even has that, where they have display items in their windows that are done tastefully and not just plastered over with plastic or vinyl or things like that. So I think this one, I'm not 100% sure what was originally approved, but I think we would want to explore that before we go down any of these other paths, because it's not fair. We deal with this almost every development that comes forward. They present a nice plan with beautiful windows, but then they want to cover them all up. So in some cases, it might be better not even having the windows at that point. So again, we really try hard to at least look at the floor plans to make sure that they're not impacting windows. And like I said, with Ace, I went out there personally. I met with the owners. We walked the site a little bit to determine where everything was going, so they were not going to block any of those windows. And same with Sierra. They submitted a floor plan to show where their cashiers were going to be, so they were not blocking windows either. So I don't want to just be the first reaction shouldn't be to let's just allow them to block windows. Let's look at other solutions first. So.
Yeah, those window display features over at Les Moise look really nice, and you kind of see a little bit of what's for sale, and it accomplishes the same thing. It sounds like maybe we're willing to entertain a motion to table while some of the details get worked out. We do want to be consistent. Yep. Yeah. So if there's other places under very limited set of circumstances that have done it, maybe it's an option. It'd be nice to be consistent, because once you do it for someone, becomes hard to do it, hard to not allow it ever again. Are there any further comments or questions? Commissioner Urbani?
I am now very interested in what was originally approved, because technically this is blocking the windows. And even if it were painted a different color, the backs of the cashier stations, it's a very bright yellow. Yeah, I'm just interested in what was approved now.
I think that's just in the picture. That's likely a wood grain that you're seeing there backing up to the windows.
Actually, it looks like the primer color for the backside of a cabinet that normally no one would see because it's up against the wall. Commissioner Strelchak.
Yeah, just to highlight the intent of the building, you know, that was Mequon's really first retail center. So the vision for that building was stores with a retail presence, and the windows were to be to display for window shopping purposes, the merchandise within, to encourage people to come in and shop within the store. And that's been a long-standing tradition that we've tried to uphold in that facility. So as close as we can get to that intent is really what I would like to see as a planning commissioner and an alderman in the community. Secondarily, if you do need to cover it and you do come back, I did Google the product because it's been several years since I've been in the industry. The product is MacTac Bee-Free Frosted Vinyl Wrap. Is the brand that I used. That type of product in clear, you know, kind of a blocking method with no color is what I would look for you to come back with if we were going to entertain something that would block out anything. So here's the intent of the building. We'll probably move to table this versus just saying no. If you'd come back, that's personally what I'd like to see, and that's a viable solution as a compromise. But again, try your best to work with staff to, you know, figure out what you can do without blocking that window. Because if we block it for you, I was unaware that there's several other we've had that conversation with recently, and we want to be reasonable to the community and not set some different standards.
Okay. Any further comments or questions, or is there a motion?
Motion to table.
Oh, now it's not debatable. So motion and a second. We can't have any debate. So I will. All those in favor of tabling, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The item is now tabled, and I guess we'll see you soon, maybe next month. That brings us to, that's all the items for action. We just have a couple of policy items coming up. The first is the Port Washington Road Design Guidelines for Commercial Structures.
Thank you. So we had our meeting last time. We talked a little bit about design guidelines. I think went pretty well. There were some questions or concerns about what this means in terms of projects. So I'm going to, I did something wrong here, so let me fix that. So what we did here is we put together some visuals of some of the recently approved projects, and then we kind of compared them to our design guidelines to see where we're at in terms of themes or where we're seeing things are missing. And then I also put in some information, back in 2018 we did a survey of some of the projects that we invited all the boards of commissioners to come look and evaluate. We sent out, I think, 50 requests, and I think we only had 8 people that responded, which I put the 8 responses in there. I think it shows there's not much of a pattern. They're kind of all over the place a little bit. So I just wanted to go through some of the projects that we recently approved and talk a little bit about how they fit in or fall short of what we would be proposing, or elicit some questions from us on what we should do going forward. So before I get into the pictures, I'll just say that we found some kind of trends that we saw where we were either inconsistent or things that we should probably talk about a little bit more detail. So in terms of inconsistencies, we've seen some entrances. We always try to advocate for entrances along the front of the street. We've seen that in many cases, but in some cases we haven't really required it, or staff has recommended it and the applicant did not want it, and the commission decided not to support staff's recommendations. We also see a higher percentage of glass in a lot of these projects that would be permitted. Based on the proposed language, we need 60% primary material, so at the most you would get 40% glass. I want to show you some projects later that'll probably be a lot more than that. We're seeing a lot of issues with articulation. We think that's especially important on flat roof buildings, and I don't think we're seeing that as much in some of these examples. Roof forms, the depths of parapets, which we talked a little bit before, lack of aeration and roof heights, especially on flat buildings, I think are an issue. Roof accents, lack of overhangs and cornices, and then again, a little bit of over-reliance on corporate or national branding into the design of the building. So I'll just kind of go over these one by one, and we'll talk a little bit about what they meet, what they don't meet, and we didn't do a full-blown analysis. That would take a long time for every one of these, but we just kind of looked at them and just see generally what we thought. So this first one, it's a little hard to see. It's a little dark on the screen, but this is a children's medical clinic. Now this one, again, our design guidelines, this is a corner property, so this actually should have been up closer to the street. Now there are wetlands that kind of prohibit it being right up to the street, but this one's got a whole parking lot blocking or segregating the street from the building. So I guess that's one of the things that we have to talk about, is that if that's something we're looking for, we're not really following in some of our other examples as well. So and then this one, you can see the primary materials is probably close, probably a little under that 60 feet or 60%. And then this is a relatively flat roof building. There's not a whole lot of articulation in that roof. So I think that one is something we would look for to improve in the future. And if you want to just chime in or anytime, you can give me, or we can talk after, however you want to do it. This is Associated Bank. This is one that was, I think we had at least 3 versions of this bank, and it had elicited a lot of conversation. Now, this one actually doesn't have a front entranceway. It's off to the side of the building and not in the front. It's very boxy. There's multiple levels of roof, but not a ton of articulation. There's just one high tower. Percentage of materials, there is a lot of glass on the front of this building. And then again, we had that issue with the decorative element inside, if you may recall. This one did actually has a street connection, though, which is something we supported. Now, Freight Energy, again, this is a very large building. This is one of the larger
Can we
buildings.
pause on that one? Because
Sure,
you
go
said
ahead.
interrupt.
Sure.
I'd also like to highlight that I thought it was a condition that green band on the top was not lit in any way, and it didn't it was not supposed to have the appearance to be lit. So as we're coming up with standards, they put a translucent vinyl that's green on the top, that's lit all up at the top, and that looks like that green band is lit. They asked for it to be specifically backlit, but they put the lighting in a way that it backlights it anyway, and it was a workaround that failed to meet the intent of what was approved. So I guess I'd ask staff to A, look at that and review that, and then B, that we set a clear standard for the community that doesn't happen again, because that doesn't reflect what we're trying to do from a high-end architecture within the community.
So they're internally illuminating it, and it's causing the band to be.
Yeah, drive by it at 8 o'clock at night one night, and it's. I'll text you a picture.
All right.
On the way back from Arby's one night. Yeah.
So back to Freighter. Now, Freighter, a couple things I think are okay, but some things probably don't follow the guidelines. They did put a connection into the road here. This is a very large building, one of the largest buildings along this corridor. I believe it's about 86,000 square feet. So, now this was required a PUD because of that size. So this is one of those things. If we think these are just too large of buildings, we have to be more specific and not allow anything larger than the 40,000 square foot that's permitted in the zoning districts. Again, this is a flat roof. There's not a lot of detail, not a lot of articulation in that roof. It's pretty long, and in terms of materials, there's a lot of glass. I don't think there's 60% primary materials on this one as well. And then next one, again, this is another one that I think we've had a lot of conversations about, but when you look at this one, it actually meets a lot of the criteria that's in the guidelines. It has primary materials that are over 60%. It's up on against the corner. There's no parking lot between it. It has articulating roof lines. It has a public entrance right on the street. So, and it's got a well-concealed drive-through in the back, which is required on a corner. So, in terms of guideline compliance, it actually does comply. So I guess, and then this is one in the survey where we saw some people really liked it and people that really didn't like it. So, you know, architecture is the eye of the beholder. Maybe now, yes, but yeah, since. So I mean, I think staff has already felt. I always felt this was an attractive building. I think the biggest issue I think I heard was always the location of the building on the site, but we had to put it in context because it was controlled by two state highways, or the state had control of access on both of these ends, and we had to shift it up so we could keep those entrances further away from the road. So. Here's another example. This is more of our traditional looking building. It does have, you know, nice primary materials. It's got, you know, nice decorative features. It's got a nice cornice. It's got elevated roof lines. So I think just a nice job. But this one here, we didn't require any connection to the street. So you'd have to go through the parking lot to get to the road. So again, this is one of these things where and since we don't have these built into our actual ordinance, we try to catch as much as we can, but sometimes we don't always catch them, and sometimes they don't always agree with the applicant doesn't agree with staff, or the commission doesn't agree with staff. So here's another example. This is one of we talked a little bit about over-reliance on corporate branding. I think the building itself isn't bad. I think there's just little things that are out of scale, and I think that all has to do with the corporate brand that Kohler was pushing at the time, and it's kind of similar to some of their other buildings. Again, I don't think they have a street connection here. I mean, in terms of materials, I think it's pretty well done. They have a lot of brick, a lot of stone. But there's just something off a little bit of the scale to it. I think that all has to do with their corporate logo, their branding. This one's a little unfair because it's a rehab of an existing building, so there were things that they had to deal with in terms of context, like this little chalet kind of a roof line here. This one, I think the biggest concern from staff was the fact that this parapet is, again, hollow. There's no return on it. But again, this is a little bit more difficult to deal with since it was an existing building, but I think we could have did a little bit better job on the roof line of that building. Concord Development, this is another building. This is material-wise, it's all brick and, you know, high-end materials, but I think one of the concerns staff had was just the lack of detail to these gables. There's no overhangs to it. It's relatively flat. There's no cornice material here. I think that would have been a little bit nicer option than having that flat, no overhang look to the building. Oops, sorry, I skipped one. So this is the Jimmy John's, former Taco Bell, now currently Dunkin' facility. Now, I think this one did a nice job in identifying sign bands, which is something we added to our section, which I'll talk a little bit about later. So they have a nice area for sign bands. There's a lot of articulation in the roof. There's a lot of detail to those cornices. I think this one did a nice job overall. So I think we've heard negative complaints that it's too busy, but again, I think in terms of guidelines, it probably does comply with most of their guidelines. Now this was kind of a unique building in terms of this is like a owner occupied single tenant user, but obviously much more than 40% glass on this building. So if we're open to such design with a lot more glass, then we're going to have to tweak our ordinance, or we'd have to prove those on an exception basis. And the mayor brought up Les Louise before. This is an example of Les Louise. Again, this is a rehab of an existing building, but they did a decent job with the building they had to work with, was creating higher additional roof lines here and there, offsetting the articulation. Now, if it was a new building, maybe they could have articulated those front entries out a little bit further. It's still relatively flat, but again, they were working with the confines of the existing building. Our Metro Market grocery store, I think, did a nice job. It's got a lot of primary it's a very large building. I believe it's about 60,000 square feet. And they break it up, I think, at least the front facade pretty well with the articulation of the front of the building, the amount of glass, the different roof lines. So I think that one was done pretty well. This is an older example of a building. Now, this one, I think, where everything looks really nice about this building, but I think the biggest concern we had in the comments kind of showed us the size of the mortar versus the stone. I'm not sure how that all came to be, but I think people have reacted negatively to the amount of mortar on this building. So it's little things like that. It's really difficult to prescribe that, but this is something that, you know, we noticed that we have to address somehow in our code if we're gonna try to avoid this situation in the future. Now here's our Medi Spa. This was recently approved. This is, again, we went around several times on it. Now this is the final product. I think we still could have did more with the roof lines and the articulation. It seems rather boxy, a little flat. And, you know, again, the windows have they have the arch windows on one side and the flat on the other. I think that's a little concern from staff. Here's our new North Shore Bank. Again, a lot of glass, way over 40% of the front of that building is covered in glass. A little bit more of a corporate branding look too. Again, they have a sloped roof that kind of matches their brand. The sign face is kind of matching their brand. Another one, Landmark, same thing. A lot of glass, matches their brand. It does have some articulation to it, but again, we're relying on that corporate branding to kind of work and go from there to try to make it better, which is something that we think we should not do. Arby's, this is a multi-tenant building. This is one where they did a decent job on the front corner. It's easy, hard to tell, but they did create like more of a returns. But on the back, we did not require them those parapets to have a return on them, so you can kind of see the sides of those that that doesn't look very appealing. Jilly's Car Wash, this was kind of a tough one. This is a kind of a unique user. It almost looks residential, I guess, in a sense. So it's one of those things where they meet the requirements for the amount of brick and stone on the front. It's probably well over 60%, but it's kind of a tough user to kind of quantify because it is a car wash versus anything else. And then finally, we put on the neighborhood hospital again. This one, I think it was okay job. There's a lot of glass on there, but they did use a lot of different natural materials. They have some elevation changes. They did put a nice walkway in off the front to connect to the structure. There's a doorway in the front, so that meets a number of our requirements. So overall, I think when we look back at this, I don't think we're doing a bad job or the commission is doing a bad job in these buildings. I think there's just a couple minor things that maybe we could improve on that would help. What having the guidelines kind of direct us in that fashion. We also identified two things. One of them I did talk a little bit about incorporating sign ban requirements to our design guidelines, having the applicant know that they have to provide, especially for multi-tenant buildings, where a sign ban is going to go, so we don't have that fight later on at Planning Commission on where these signs all go on the buildings. And the other one was that we would bring back a requirement we used to have in our code for residential, but we never had a commercial, would be that if there is a building that is being built between two structures, they would have to average the setbacks between the two. Some of that we've kind of done a little bit with, like when PNC was built, and I could kind of show you the aerial. PNC was built, we wanted Associated to be close up, which they were, because it was a split between Bank Mutual and basically Starbucks. But then, you have a situation where, like this is a dental facility. This is way far back compared to anything else in that area, and it kind of sticks out as being not really being inconsistent with the rest of the setbacks. So we felt like adding language to that would allow them to remain consistent. And I think we've done a pretty good job. So again, you look at the Kohler Credit Union, the building next, these are all pretty much have the same lineup. And a lot of these are still non-conforming to our code requirement because the setbacks we require so deep. But we try to at least kind of match or come close to that as for consistency. So we wanted to add that back into the language. So I know that was a lot in a short bit of time, but I just wanted to kind of hit the high points and to see if you guys have any thoughts. The other thing is, there was discussion about this evaluation, and I know it's probably tough to talk about some of these buildings in public, being critical of them, but if the commission feels important, we could send out a survey for all these buildings and do what we did in 2018 and get your feedback on them, so it's more not so public, and we could get your feedback to see if there's any themes that come up with the commission, and then we can adjust our guidelines based on that. If that's something you're interested in, we can do that.
I'm sorry, I turned my own mic off. I think it is. We talked about it a little bit last week at our weekly staff meeting that it's nice to have the data point from the 2018 timeframe, but now we're almost 6 years outside of when that was done, and we've got a different makeup of the commission. It's probably worth doing again because these things always end up landing in our lap. So I'd be supportive of trying to do the same survey. Maybe there's a couple other buildings we could add that have been done since then, and kind of see where the numbers land, and then we can try and formulate a little better policy as written in text, and then maybe decide on maybe we could have another separate document as a visual guide for people. It's kind of hard to encompass every possible scenario in a design guide, but it probably helps translate the text into something more tangible for the average consumer coming before us, so they can kind of see what we mean, not just read what we mean.
Yeah, you don't want to get too formulaic. It's that fine line between being formulaic and at least giving them guidance, and that's where it's You gotta hit
Yeah,
that
you
finalized
can't write code to cover
every
the
situation.
thousands of scenarios that are come before you and cover all of it succinctly, but sometimes a little bit less wordy in the words and more pictures can maybe be
Yeah.
a decent balance. Any comments on what we just saw from anyone? Commissioner Schaefer.
I was just thinking about the examples you gave, Jack, of things that were redos or remodels, and that's going to happen, right, over time. So we have a lot of new build, or have had a lot of new build. This is probably more, I would defer to Marty, as I do on matters of this nature, but wondering if we need to incorporate, are there elements that are sort of timeless? Like I'm thinking of like a colonial house, right? That has sort of persisted over time, and it's not always top of trend, but it has not, at least in my mind, been something where like, this is garishly like like the Brady Bunch house or something where it was very period specific. So something that's a little more, are there elements that are kind of timeless that we'd want to incorporate such that as these buildings go through time and they change types of business that are there, tenants, et cetera, that it's more palatable for these folks to move in and feel like they don't have, I don't know. This is truly a question. I don't have a good suggestion. I'm wondering if there are things from an architectural perspective that you're like, this is not a flash in the pan. This has sort of stood the test of time.
Well, obviously there are historical styles that have, lasted over time, but
A little closer, yeah.
but I don't
The mics are horrible.
but I don't think that we would want in Mequon everything to look the same though either. So it's hard to judge.
Yeah, you don't want it to be cookie cutter, but you don't.
I'd be like,
You want to avoid some of the really bad outliers too.
it's going to go into the Associated Bank when they decide they might want to move. It's
Nothing. It'll
tricky,
probably get torn down. I'm guessing.
right? That's less, I don't know. Anyway, I'm sorry that I'm not giving guidance. I appreciate all that you are doing to try to make this more clear for the tenants, right, or for the applicants rather, and for us. It's tricky to me when we have buildings that are pretty unique, and I think about what's going to happen next. Like who's going to move in there eventually when, I don't know. I worry out into the future. This is what I do. So I guess this is how it parlays into planning commission.
Your job secure as a planning commissioner. There'll always be a nuance or a wrinkle to talk about. Commissioner Strelchak.
Yeah, tying you gave a lot of examples up there that were really nice. There's some historical aspect to what you provided, and some new things, and some examples of maybe where we don't want to go in the future, and some examples of, hey, might be kind of nice to repeat it. I don't think there's a lot of mistakes on things that we've approved within the community. I think overall we've been pretty decent. What I am seeing though is a trend to go to heavier glass-fronted buildings. And I'm noticing that my resistance to those are increasingly higher because I think it feels too industrial, doesn't really kind of fit in with the area, and I don't think architecturally those have really tied in. Also tying in a little bit with the history of Mequon, prior to a few mayors ago, just about everything that was coming into the community was colonial. You could have any business you wanted as long as it was in a building that looked like a house. And I think that was a little stifling, right? My opinion is that, there's some opportunity for, different and a variety of architecture, things that are still a high-end and rich look for the community. The problem that we have, and the problem that I have personally, as a member of this, commission, is I'm not an architect. I don't know how to clearly convey from a design standard standpoint. I want to see more natural material. I don't want to see a lot of glass. But if something really cool and architectural comes forth, we'd be open to it. Cool and architectural is inviting somebody to say, it's like saying, hey, can you paint that with a little more paint? And, you could have an amazing painting, or you could have a Picasso, or something historical, or you could have some absolute disaster splattered on the wall, you know, with that. So, you know, you're helping articulating this and, you know, clearly conveying it. You know, we're looking for some hefty feedback from you as to, you know, how that language maybe looks in other communities. You know, I would mirror more of where I want to go to a more affluent community, maybe in a mountain community or, you know, something like that. You know, we've got a lot of banks and a lot of them have a lot of glass and a lot of them look different. You know, I know with, you know, one of them we asked for a little heavier columns and quite frankly, it looks a lot better in our community than the other ones with the real thin, spindly columns. The Associated Bank one was one that I objected to, voted against here and on council based on the design because I figured it would be a glass box with a bright green band on the top regardless of what we said, and it wouldn't really represent the community. And I drive by that at night, and you know it's not visually appealing to me. But you know, we'll welcome into our community. Thank you for investing in Mequon, but it's not the look I want to repeat here. You know, from a design standard standpoint, Contessa. You know, you brought up the Contessa building. They were a customer years ago, and I got invited in, and you know, you walk in through that big glassed area, and it's this exquisite, high-end, probably nicer than my house lobby, you know, with really nice wood and fixtures, and you know, really beautiful, you know, thing hanging in there, and the overhang and that roof line is exceptionally expensive, so that brings up the look of the building. But again, like, my struggle as a commissioner is, how do you articulate that you need a really unique and cool roof line to an architect or a, you know, potential investor in our community, and not send them back and forth? You know, that process as a community, you know, and I see, you know, a couple developers in the area. You know, it's been an exhausting process in Mequon, a lot of back and forth. So whatever we do here, as clearly as we can convey it, would be appreciated. My recommendation is that we go with as many natural materials, set maybe a glass standard. If there's an exception, there's a reason to look at it and why, or just say no because we can't. You know, once you say yes to one, you say yes to all. But, you know, a lot of the examples you brought up, you know, are great. Some are just not as great, right?
Any other feedback from the commission? We're definitely going to get a survey soon, so you know that's coming. But any last parting words?
Yeah, I think we're gonna just keep plugging at it. I mean, this is probably one of the most difficult things to try to quantify. I mean, it's no matter what you do, you're still. I mean, even with our whole town center, our town center guidelines are probably the most elaborate guidelines we have, and then the Spectrum building, which was approved, which I think most people would think looks good, does not comply with our standards, and they were approved with basically a waiver at the time. So no matter how hard you try, you're not going to be able to quantify everything in one code. So you're always going to have to give deviations and exceptions. I think we just have to pinpoint some of the larger issues that we definitely don't want to cross. Like, again, if we're having an issue with glass, too much glass, or we're having issues with flat roofs or too boxy buildings, I think we have to deal with those issues, and then maybe subtly deal with other things. Because I think you're not going to write and that's why I brought the Lexington Square example up. I think most people think that's a very traditional, very nice looking building, but some people don't like the amount of mortar in there. I mean, you're not going to dictate the percentage of mortar on a building. It's just way too detailed. So, but it's just little things like that. So we'll keep working on it. This is not just going to be a quick process. This is going to take some time. But we're just going to keep spoon feeding you information, and we'll get you a survey out. We'll get some input from that, and then we'll keep going, and we'll keep plugging away at it.
I agree with that. Try and nibble away at the larger, more frequent issues, and try to make them come up less, and I'll leave more time to argue about the little stuff. I was only joking on that, but there'll always be little things here and there, because yeah, it's hard to write one code for every possible contingency. So, any other comments or questions? If not, we'll move on. Thank you, Jack. We'll move on to Chapter 58, 303, specific design guidelines for the Arrival Corridor Zoning District. And Kim has joined us. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for welcoming me. So we modified the Arrival Corridor text at last month's meeting, And one of the issues that came up was the requirement for commercial uses at ground level if the site is fronting Mequon Road. So we had a little bit of a dialogue as a staff and commission. In the town center zoning district, you're required to have that ground level have 75% commercial use. And the conversation was, do we want to alleviate that to some degree or another for the arrival corridor district? So what we did as a staff is first looked at, Jack, if there's the zoning maps in there that show the sites in the packet, and we highlighted which ones front on Mequon Road. So there's the map shows both arrival corridor and town center sites. There are a greater number of parcels in the town center district that front on Mequon Road and would have the requirement to provide commercial use on that ground level. Those are the sites that are either vacant or yet to be redeveloped in compliance with town center. Those total just under 11 acres. And then the arrival corridor district, there's 5 sites that front on Mequon Road and a little bit over 11 acres. Now, staff would say that a number of these sites are likely not ripe to redevelop, but we didn't want to just use our judgment about which ones would, potentially go sooner than the others. So we just provided, the full extent of the parcels fronting on Mequon Road. Then the next thing we did was look at some examples, and there's a bunch in your packet. We don't have to, go through all of those. We can, talk about them if you guys have questions. But I think a number of those images that we looked at, and we tried to look all across the country at different urban environments and some more suburban, but on a kind of a commercial fringe type neighborhood area, where we knew there was multiple family development either with or without commercial uses, to try to get a little bit of a flavor of how what the distinctions are. So in the staff report, we mentioned really 2 kind of broad categories: design considerations and market considerations. And really what we identified with the design considerations, whether it was commercial uses on the ground level or all residential, but breaking up maybe the end caps or the bookends of the structures for those particular residential units. In those cases, really what was happening is those corner units or bookend units were stepping back to give a little bit of relief for being on like a corner. And obviously, having a greater volume of traffic and probably noise and lights. And then with a commercial and component to those buildings, whether they were located on the corner or central to the site, they were either pulled forward or pushed back. And so you started to see really subtle distinctions from a design standpoint in terms of the location, the projections of those uses, and then also if it was commercial, you saw a much greater massing or scale of features. So maybe it was the same window pattern, but the windows were larger. Maybe it was the same roof element, but there was heavier weight to that roof element. So a lot of the examples showcase that. So if we were to trend, and staff is leaning towards this direction of allowing just straight residential development in the arrival corridor district, even if it does front on Mequon Road, what we started to see was the need to pull some of those units back if you were located at a corner, and then also generally making sure, and we do have design standards for what needs to happen between the street and the front facade of every building, but we were a little bit more articulate about what exactly features need to happen within that area, so that we were clearly defining the public realm, meaning the public street and the public sidewalk, clearly defining what is totally private, which is the front door, the front porch, and a little bit of a landscaped yard. And then you have this middle area that helps transition from public to private. Whether you call it semi-public or semi-private, it's kind of all the same. So we, in the draft text amendment, we suggest those additional architectural features if we were to go down that direction or that path. The other consideration was really the market. There is even if we change the code to not require commercial uses on the ground floor for those in the arrival corridor district, there's nothing to say that if the market demand or interest is there, that somebody can't provide the commercial use. So certainly that opportunity is still available. But given the number of sites left to develop in town center, given the amount of white box commercial tenant spaces that we have, particularly on Weston Drive as part of the Foxtown development, and hopefully continued redevelopment in that town center zoning district, we started to lean towards, mandating that ground level commercial use in town center, but not in the arrival corridor district for those reasons. We'd rather have the activity and the concentration and the synergy of those commercial uses that are hopefully continuing to generate the pedestrian traffic concentrated in that town center neighborhood. And if you recall, when we created these zoning districts, we always acknowledged that we wanted the arrival corridor to look and feel like the style of development that was happening in the town center portion, zoning portion of it, but we acknowledge that that was going to likely be less pedestrian oriented, less heavy in terms of its commercial use. So our recommendation to the Planning Commission and ultimately, if you forward this to the Common Council, would be to still require the town center commercial ground floor uses at the 75%, alleviate that in the arrival corridor district, again, not prohibited, but it's not required, and then add those additional design features should it be purely residential for those AC sites fronting on Mequon Road. If the commission, and this would be the same guidance to the council, I mean, if the commission feels that we want to continue to push the market for some level of commercial, the minimum standard in both of our zoning districts for a commercial use is 1,200 square feet. So we would suggest, rather than a percentage, that at least you provide 1,200 square feet of commercial use for those arrival corridor development sites. And there was an image in your packet that showed, none of those images are exact or perfect, kind of like what we just talked about, but it showed, a building that kind of showed you the scale of like what a 1,200 square foot commercial space would look like and what a 3,000 square foot commercial space might look like.
Thank you. Any feedback or comments from our commissioners? Commissioner Barnes.
Really, looking at the track changes page,
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
I agreed with what you've discussed, and I got a little confused on the where it's giving us the definitions and for multiple family dwellings, and then number B under it says district second story dwelling units shall be prohibited. I'm sorry,
It should be distinct. It should be distinct.
Should be what?
Distinct second story units, meaning you'd have your front entrance on the second floor is prohibited. And that's a previous text amendment. That's actually from March.
Okay, I was just I was reading it with the list and then seeing that standout, and it didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it should be distinct. Just essentially meaning every residential unit has to have a first floor front entry. We eliminated the ability to have the typical apartment corridor entrances. So you no longer in either district can do a 3-story apartment complex where you go into a main entrance, go up an elevator or stairs to get to your unit, and you have your front door unit on the 3rd floor, corridor or second door corridor. Everyone has to have a front entrance on the ground floor, on the street level. And you're maxed out at 2 stories.
That being in the context of the definition of what a multifamily dwelling is.
Correct.
Commissioner Strelchak.
Yeah, a couple of questions. In the call out, you said a multifamily was 2 to 16 units, but then there's a further description that didn't read really clear to me, so and it said more than 16 units was something with a PUD, and it didn't really call out that it was allowed or not allowed with a PUD.
So both of these comments really relate to last month's text amendment, just so everybody knows, which you've already approved, but happy to go over those again. So the PUD issue from last month is that in the arrival corridor zoning district, a few years ago there was a text amendment that said you couldn't have any more than a total of 16 units per development. And
Agreed.
what we did last month was to say you can have more than 16 per development, but you can never have any more than 16 per building. And the only way to request more than 16 per your development site, no matter how you configure the buildings, is to go through the PUD process. Prior to last month, someone didn't even have the right to request that. And when the text was originally created back in 07, it did allow for that. So I think it was just I think it was when we brought it forward to you last month, we were clarifying language because one section of the code suggested that you could still do it, but then the PUD portion basically prohibited it. So we married those up and made the change. And council and planning commission could still authorize it, but remember a PUD rezoning process, you don't have to justify your denial. So if it's a development that you don't like, you feel like it's too great of density, you don't like the massing of the structures for whatever reason, you can reject it.
Yeah, it gives us a lot of control.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the 1,200 square feet. So a smaller building, 1,200 square feet with something, is fine. But if you end up with a larger building, we're only going to require. I just wanted clarity on what you were saying. So
Sure.
if it's larger, can we go to a percentage where it's 1,200 square feet's the minimum? But then if it's larger, it's still based on a percentage. I don't want to see a 50,000 square foot something with 1,200 square feet of non-residential. You know what I mean?
Well, in the arrival corridor district, you can't have any residential structure have greater than 16 units in it.
Got it.
We're not for this text amendment. What you asked us to come back with this month, we're saying we're recommending we're comfortable for both design reasons and market conditions that in the arrival corridor district, if you're fronting on Mequon Road, there isn't a mandate to provide the commercial use.
But the 1,200 would be appropriate for something the scale of a 16-unit building.
Yes, and if the planning commission doesn't like the idea that there is no commercial required in the arrival corridor district, we're just saying that we would recommend back to you then the minimum that you ask of those developments is 1,200 square feet.
And if you get a bigger building, they're gonna have to go through the PUD process, and then we can.
I'm personally not loving. I want to see some commercial aspect, and Mr. Zabchek, I know, is hating this right now, and I apologize to you in advance. My vision for Town Center was that it would be a walkable community, right? And that was a vision for the community and development staff, as well as a lot of the people that have invested in development there. We're struggling to get stores or reason for the community to come beyond what's already there. We're struggling to fill the retail locations with stores where people are going to come shop, spend money, walk in the community, spend the day. My intent for the area is either to on the lower level, have businesses that are going to go support our other, soft businesses that are going to support our other retail businesses, restaurants and shops and amenities, or a reason to continue to come to the community to spend money within the area. I think the reason we went to a cap on 16 units per building is the ROI for an apartment is significantly better than the ROI for a retail establishment, and that's the development that we saw, and we wanted to kind of curb that and encourage some creativity where we'd come in and have multi-use and multiple businesses and some other things within the area. And we're starting to see a slowing of proposals coming in, which is a struggle to review all this. but I don't want to lose sight of that original intent of a multi-use walkable community where the community wants to come. This is our downtown.
Can we put up the map though? That's totally appropriate for town center, but we're talking about a rival corridor.
I agree, but you know, the
Let's look at the map though.
I think there's
Town center's the blue stuff. We're talking about as you get farther down Mequon Road, into the beige stuff. It's pretty far disconnected.
because
and
there's nothing to walk to.
I think if there was
I
the
don't think
market
so.
demand for it, you would see that. And right now, we're not seeing the market demand filling in the
I think we're
white box
struggling.
tenant
I think we're
spaces
struggling to see
that we have
absorption
in
of
the
those
town
white
center.
box spaces because there just aren't enough people.
And from day one, you can look at every document that the city paid a consultant to advise us, and the number one method in terms of trying to enhance the commercial development to happen is to make sure you have the number of rooftops that those commercial uses are looking for. So and again, I know town center we got a lot of residential units and we got a lot of rooftops, but it is still really relatively low to moderate density from a commercial market attraction standpoint, and that was a conscious decision that we made, and I think it's a good one. But it's also the code doesn't prohibit someone from adding commercial in those arrival corridor sites that front on Mequon Road if the market's there. But if you think about a resident or a user in the neighborhood and you think about where the commercial development currently exists, adding another coffee shop to the location on Mequon Road, let's say on Mequon Trail and Mequon Road, most of the people that living in the neighborhood are probably going to want to really be at Collectivo because that's already the established coffee shop that's kind of in the heart of where the activity is happening. It's always, really active and vital. So even as a consumer, I think you're gonna be more attracted, and it's not a long walk to get from the reserve to, the town center zoning area. And there's so many other amenities around it, right? The park, the river. So the consumer is going to want to be there. And I think the synergy of the existing commercial uses and those that we intend to continue to attract is there's a method to, having that synergy and that concentration of, I guess, those commercial uses in that main central area of the neighborhood.
So are you sharing basically that, based on research, the studies that we've done, that by requiring that they have a heavy commercial, that would actually depreciate the value of like the core center use because it would diversify it too much and it would have it too spread out and potentially be confusing or not used?
Well, I mean, there was a market analysis done very early on as part of the zoning, creation, and that's older. I mean, there's definitely leakage in certain types of industries, and we made sure we married the type of commercial uses allowed in arrival corridor and town center, married those to those industries where there was leakage, and also the type of commercial uses that we knew would generate foot traffic and, design standards that reduced our chances of getting a lot of national chain type development, because that wasn't necessarily the design or the consumer that's going to walk around. The issue of having in the code the requirement for the ground level commercial was twofold. One, we wanted to make sure that we were getting mixed use and getting that walkability. But really the issue of having commercial for mandating the commercial for the properties that front on Mequon Road is that those properties, and you can see the little cluster of the yellow ones in a rival corridor, they didn't have a ton of street frontage and they were very deep. And we knew that if it was going to be mixed use on those sites, commercial would front on Mequon Road, and the depth of the site would end up being residential, right? Because no commercial use is going to want to be that deep off of Mequon Road. So we had kind of imagined in the arrival corridor that it wouldn't really be true mixed use like we have in Town Center, that it wouldn't likely be within the same building, but that it would be a full commercial building fronting on Mequon. Then you'd have that access road, like if you've gone back by Reserve, and we've continued to establish that mid-block access road, and to the south of there would be straight residential.
I think we got to remember where we started out as well. We started out where these larger scale, heavy, tall apartment buildings would be allowable pretty much everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point we hit the brakes on that. So a lot of the original planning and the zoning and the reason for requiring this was envisioning something more big than what we ultimately decided. We had a big explosion of large apartment buildings. We put the brakes on it with this 16 unit requirement. I think we tapped the brakes, but we're seeing that's had the consequence of maybe slowing down the absorption of the retail spaces. Now unless you're going to have many more users, you're not going to be able to absorb many more retail spaces. I'd rather protect the core, but you're going to have to trade that with allowing a little flexibility in what they can do along Mequon Road. As long as we're sticking with the requirements to do that in the core where we want it and relaxing a little, I think that's the natural consequences of tapping the brakes.
And you're essentially now, from a residential standpoint, you're essentially required to do an attached townhome style residential multiple family project. You're not allowed to do the 3 stories anymore anyway. So you're not going to get that look on Mequon Road that we initially thought we might get, to the mayor's point.
Thank you for the explanation. I appreciate it.
We have a lot of history.
A lot has happened in
Yeah.
10 or 15 years. Commissioner Schaefer.
We have not heard of any slowing down of occupancy rates. I mean, the little bit of, decrease in, 95% or something like that is usually because there's a move out and a wait for the next lease to start. But we're still hearing high 90s for occupancies. Yep. Yep, and I just heard from Lakeside that 2 more pocket homes have been started, sold, and three more are in queue. So that seems to continue to. And you're happy to be wrong, right? Happy.
But are you thinking of moving in? No, I'm just kidding. Commissioner Hawley.
I just want to say, I think I agree with everything that you said. I think it makes a ton of sense to not require but allow in the corridor. I think that's, if we get more tenants there, that is going to draw to the town center. It's not that far away. Makes 100% sense.
Any other feedback? What is staff looking for? Just general input before this goes any farther?
No, a recommendation.
Okay.
So last month's text amendment is advancing to next month's common council meeting. We just brought this one element back for your review, and assuming we get a positive, well, I guess even if we don't get a positive vote, that will be forwarded to the common council next month as well.
Okay, we caught one typo. Distinct, not district. Any other feedback on the words as written?
I'd like to move acceptance.
Suppose we recommend this to the council
Recommending to the council.
with the typo fixed?
With I don't need to be hung up on the typo. But,
But if we approve it like that, it'll be like that forever.
okay.
So yeah, we do need to worry about the typo.
Without the requirement.
There's a motion.
Second.
There's a second. Okay. Any further discussion? Just to be dramatic, let's call the roll.
Commissioner Urbani,
Aye.
Commissioner Barnes,
Aye.
Commissioner Chorin,
Aye.
Commissioner Hawley,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer, Alderman Stralchuk,
Aye.
Mayor Nurbin.
Aye.
Vote
We'll
passes.
move on to the council.
Recommendation passes.
All right. We just have one item left. We have announcements. Next meeting, Monday, May 20th, 6 o'clock. See all of you there, hopefully. And that just leaves us with one last item we need to take action on.
Adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? And we're adjourned.